Hi and Assalamualaikum, especially to Sir Ainul Fizi. Welcome to our video presentation. In this video presentation, we would like to explain the study of risk assessment and risk management technique.
I am the first presenter today. My name is Nurin Afrina. I will cover the introduction and the education risk. So let us start what is the risk and risk management means. Here is a simple explanation of risk and risk management in insurance. So, risk is the possibility of something happening that will have an adverse effect on your goals. It can be everything from a financial loss to a physical injury.
Next, what is the purpose of this study of risk assessment and risk management technique? The goal of this study is to identify the business or company risk and offer technique, procedure, and control to lessen their risk in daily operations. With that, it can help the owner to decide with the knowledge they get to ensure long-term profitability and avoid losses for their business and company.
AirAsia is a multinational airline that is the fourth largest airline service in Asia. It all started when Tony Fernandez and Kamaruddin Baranun leased a struggling airline in 2001 with 2 aircraft and over 200 employees. They then converted into fourth largest in Asia with more than 200 aircraft and 21,000 employees spread out across Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and the Philippines, and other countries. With ease to access, affordability, and low cost as its foundation, AirAsia has served more than 600 million passengers to more than 160 locations in its network. It is connected people with the goal of serving underprivileged, and with its well-known tagline, "Now everyone can fly," it has been highly recognized for democratizing air travel in the area.
Education risk bring the meaning of the risk that a student will not, such as on academic. This can be due to a variety of factors such as poverty, lack of access to quality education, or learning disability. In addition, the airline industry also those that most negatively impact, such as for the company AirAsia, also affected by the COVID-19. So, I will discover what is the existing and the potential risk in a step 1 by identifying these two items. For existing risk peril, I found that the cause of loss is the COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic had a significant impact on the aviation industry, that causing a sharp decline in the passenger travel, especially students to attend their university. Next, for hazard is a condition that may create or increase the chance of loss. For this, it made the learning disrupted and the delivery of the education as many schools had to close and had to move to online learning. Other than that, it also made difficult for students to return to their study center or university. This is because of the demanding process and documentation required to board and align, as well as a tight rule in place after COVID. The demand for AirAsia Airline has fallen dramatically due to the COVID-19 pandemic, travel restriction, and the following economic crisis. The next step 2 is evaluate potential risk. Peril is the same potential risk is the COVID-19 wave in our country. For the hazard that impact education is challenges for undergraduate pursuing the career in the aviation sector. This has affected their training potential, future profession for a student whose undergraduate degree in aviation. When they are disrupted in their learning, it causes a loss and make a lower demand for a job opportunity as a pilot and lead to the high unemployment rate. Unexpected risks like a COVID-19 raise serious concern. The risk exists might come and severely impact the educational industry too. This causes natural disaster with a high frequency and severity like a COVID-19. It falls into this category. Step 3, examining the alternative risk management technique. I found that 3 alternatives, which is the risk avoidance, loss prevention, and loss reduction. For risk avoiding is the process of removing risk, exposure, and action that might negatively impact a company asset and operation. While for a loss prevention, describe the step taken to prevent the loss of human life, physical health, and property. For loss reduction is the practice of implementing methods to lower risk for a variety of assets. Selecting and implementing risk management program in a step 4, the selection may be based on two-factor financial criteria and non-financial criteria. There are two main methods to reduce the risk COVID-19 in the aviation industry, which is loss prevention and loss reduction. Costs related to implementing COVID-19 safety measure into place to reduce the likelihood of transmission on flight airline, they may need to take the additional safety procedure for the financial criteria, like Air spend more money toward the safety precautions. While for a non-financial criteria, it will affect the growth of the organization, like the customer be satisfied with their travel experience when they feel safe and secure with an airline that apply the procedure to prevent the spread of COVID-19. It also generates more additional revenue toward the Air Asia again. Last but not least, evaluating and reviewing and controlling the risk management program is an important part of the risk management process. The purpose of this step is to ensure that the risk management program is effective and there is meeting the need of the organizations. Next, the risk management program should be reviewed on a regular basis to ensure that it's still effective and identify any weakness in the organization and try to take action to fit them. It also made the leader can come out with a great decision about how to allocate resources and prioritize a project. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Fitrisha Fitra. I'm going to proceed with the next risk category, which is environmental risk. By following 5 risk management steps, I can come up with the risk which can negatively impact the AirAsia company and find the solution to avoid loss. We will go step by step. Firstly, we need to identify the existing and potential risks under environmental risk with the perspective of peril, hazard, and loss. We come up with the perils of infectious disease. It is because the COVID-19 is still going on. This situation increased the chances of loss for the AirAsia company, resulting in loss of income. Next, the potential risk that we found is a natural disaster. A natural disaster is one of the environmental risks which can happen surrounding us anytime and anywhere. Several conditions can increase the risk, including seasonal storm in Malaysia can occasionally cause significant flooding, along with the climate changes nowadays. Natural disaster can cause a variety of losses that have a negative impact on both the environment and the human population. This situation resulting in AirAsia face property damage due to the natural disaster. The second step is evaluating potential risks. Natural disasters are uncommon, but when they do occur, they will have a severe impact. That is why natural disasters fall under the category of low frequency but have a high severity. Third step is examining alternative risk management technique. Throughout the examination of alternative risk management technique, there are 2 ways to minimize the risk of loss to AirAsia company from exposure to this type of risk. There are firstly, transferring the risk by taking the insurance. Secondly, loss prevention and loss reduction. Fourth step is selecting and implementing a risk management program. In selecting the alternative, insurance is the most suitable way for the risk of natural disaster. This selection is based on 2 factors. Financial criteria, which the AirAsia company will receive money provided by the company collection fund or insurance company to repair, rebuild, and buy all the things damaged from the natural disaster. Next, non-financial criteria. From the insurance fund, the AirAsia company will most likely face low suffer to cover all the costly damage. Therefore, they can sustain and continue to grow the economy and the company. The last step is evaluating, reviewing, and controlling the risk management program. Effective risk management requires evaluation, review, and control. Create a framework, recognize hazard, develop mitigation strategy, monitor performance, and continuously enhance based on feedback and organizational requirements to avoid the same risk happening and impacting the Asia company again.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nur Nadira Amira Azman. In this video, I will be presenting about economic risk for Asia company. There are three columns in the risk which are peril, hazard, and loss. Existing risk for the peril is economic recession. A recession is a significant decline in economic activity spread across the economy. Because of the economic recession, demand for Asia services has fallen sharply as a result of changes in passenger behavior brought on by the COVID-19 crisis, travel restrictions, and the consequent economic crisis. The existing risk for hazard is reduction in country's domestic product GDP. As during the pandemic of COVID-19, the airline industry, especially Asia, cannot contribute to Malaysia's GDP because of declining demand. Lastly, for loss, this COVID-19 pandemic causes a decline in real income and a higher unemployment rate in our nation. We'll move on to the potential risk, which is peril. After COVID-19 pandemic, the company might experience bankruptcy. The coronavirus pandemic resulted in a decline in travel demand, which Asia Japan was adversely affected by. We are aware of the significant impact on the shares between Malaysia and Japan. Malaysia and Japan were forced to sever commercial ties. Shares and all gains collapsed precipitously. If things don't get better, there's a chance that Asia company could declare bankruptcy. As for potential risk of hazard, the cost of fuel is outside of Asia's control. When costs rise, it becomes difficult to keep tickets affordable. Asia company declared that it will reinstate fuel surcharges on all flights in order to counteract rising jet fuel costs. Liabilities at asset is the loss for potential risk. We'll move on to the next step, which is evaluating potential risk. For the risk matrix, we can see that bankruptcy is the low frequency and high severity. It is because once the company experiences bankruptcy, it will be filled by an airline resulting in the seizure of all operation. This indicates that all scheduled flights have been cancelled and are no longer running. The third step is examining alternative risk management technique. Bankruptcy is fall under category C, which are risk transfer insurance as well as loss prevention and loss reduction if the cost justifies the benefit. Next, for the step 4, selecting and implementing risk management program. As for the potential peril in economic risk, the best technique by using a risk matrix table is insurance. The selection of a risk management program may be based on these factors, which are financial and non-financial criteria. As for the Asia company, the business has suffered significant losses as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thus, it makes sense that they will reassess their current insurance coverage. Meanwhile, for non-financial criteria, Asia can adhere to the principle of operating efficiently in all areas of the company that are related to the low-fare business idea, which includes hassle-free travel to attract more customers to choose this airline. The last step is evaluating, reviewing, and controlling the risk management program. The airline or its consultants must draw on additional factors from creditors when drafting compromise solutions such as reputational risk and long-term partnerships. This requires skills, therefore, choosing the appropriate consultant is essential. The authorities should play their role to do continuous monitoring risk programs because sometimes risk exposures may be overlooked. Last but not least, they also need to constantly follow up and review the effectiveness of risk management with recent development of COVID-19.
So the next one is tourism risk. Firstly is to identify the existing and potential risk. As for the existing risks, there are three things. There is peril, hazard, and loss. For peril, we have global pandemic that happens during 2020. The second one is hazard, which is the consequence of the perils, which is the flight was delayed and cancelled, thus make the loss where people cancel booked flights and claim refund to avoid loss in their fund. As for the potential risk, the peril is over-tourism, the hazard is overcrowding, and as for the loss is the degradation of culture. Now, for the over-tourism, let's evaluate the potential risk. First of all, is it severe or is it frequently happen? As for over-tourism, it happens quite frequent because in Malaysia, we have so many public holidays and school holidays. As for the severity, it is not so severe. This is because it only happens in certain places and it does not harm basically everyone like the global pandemic did. From evaluating the potential risk, we can examine the alternative risk management technique such as the loss prevention and loss reduction if costs can be justified. Before selecting and implementing a risk management program, we need to make sure the criteria such as the financial and non-financial criteria. In the financial criteria, we can see that by selling only existing seats, customer will not cancel or request refund for their non-existency. This way, AirAsia can prevent loss from their side. As for the non-financial criteria, we can see that AirAsia brain-faced as Asia top 3 airlines will protect it because they do their job well. Last but not least is to evaluate, reviewing, and control the risk management program. Firstly, we need to re-evaluate the best risk management. Between two that we have, we need to choose one only. And then secondly, we need to reconsider things that has been done and need to be changed. This happens in the past. We must make sure that it doesn't happen again. Number 3, we need to find where mistakes were done and we also need to stop the mistake from happening again in the future. And lastly, to prevent the current mistake from happening and will affect others.
Last but not least for type of risk is employment risk. The first step requires us to identify existing and also potential risks that might occur under employment risk. There are three components that need to be considered, which are peril, hazard, and loss. The peril of existing risk is COVID-19 wave. This has been resulted to domestic and international flight cannot be operated as usual because of the border closure. The consequence of this activity, the employees of AirAsia are forced to be laid off by the organization. Meanwhile, for the potential risk, an explosion might happen during their way to the destinations. These perils can occur because of one possible reason, which is engine malfunction. As for the loss, it might lead to death and bodily injury. The second step is to evaluating the potential risk. The incident of explosion can fall under the low frequency and high severity. This is because an explosion is one of the rare cases that might happen in aircraft. But when it's happening, it will cause a huge damage for AirAsia since they need to spend a sum of money to fix the situation. An explosion can be fixed by several techniques, which are risk transfer, loss prevention, and also loss reduction. As in the step 3, it provides an alternative of risk management. The best way to lower the chances of an explosion is to use loss reduction technique. There are two components that will be affected by this technique, which are financial and non-financial. For financial, since AirAsia needs to hire a professional and to hold a special class for their employees in order to know the hazardous size, it costs the AirAsia to spend a lot of money to do those risk reductions. Meanwhile, for non-financial, this method will give benefits to the company since it will build a trust with the travelers and also a new graduates to fly with AirAsia. This is because they have secured the safety of their employees and also their customers. For recommendation and suggestion, first thing first, AirAsia should be prepared with the demand return from the customers. Is to cope with this situation, AirAsia can offer an attractive travel package, discounts, promotion, and others. Secondly, AirAsia needs to improve and enhancing their customer service. As AirAsia is not giving their best to satisfy the customer, this is one of the important things in order to gain more profits. Other than that, to enhance the customer experience, AirAsia should have a user-friendly and self-service option to allow the passengers to cancelling, rescheduling their tickets, asking for refunds without contacting the company. And lastly, AirAsia should practice a long-term measures in their organizations in order to minimize the spread of COVID-19. AirAsia can build a self-service facility such as biometric-based kiosk check-ins and also automatic machines to handling the luggage.
For the overall conclusion, this report helps us to understand the challenges Asia encountered during the COVID-19 pandemic by using existing and potential risks, as well as the survival measures as those they should take to get out of this scenario. Asia has experienced a considerable decline in revenue as a result of numerous policies that restrict people's mobility and travel options. Asia was impacted and even experienced losses. Therefore, the responsible authorities should continue to use risk management as a crucial organizational process. Risks are unavoidable, and authorities should have stronger risk management technique. Managing risk is crucial for organizations in today's market environment, and all authorities should adopt it to ensure the long-term viability of their companies. I think that's all from our group. With that, I end with thank you for listening and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.